council meeting of April 22nd, 2019 to order with a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. Okay, we're going to resume the public hearing to consider an amendment to the Hopkinton Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map and an amendment to the Hopkinton Zoning Ordinance filed by Atlantic Solar LLC, 260 West Exchange Street, Suite 102A, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903, and Gordon Excavating Incorporated, 15 Cold Spring Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02906, Donald G. Gordon, 11 Anderson Road, Concord Center, Connecticut, 06259, landowner. The property located at 0 Arcadia Road and 0 Crystal Lane, identified as plat 18, lots 8 and 13, in R-40 zone, and filed in accordance with Chapter 16 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Hopkinton as amended. This matter was continued from March 25th, 2019 to April 22nd, 2019, as was announced during the advertised and noticed March 25th, 2019 town council meeting. The applicants propose to install the ground-mounted solar photovoltaic solar array on the property. The proposal to utilize the property will require approval from the proposed comprehensive plan future land use map amendment from low-density residential to commercial and the zoning map amendment from RFR8 to commercial. Applicant and representatives are present, I believe, Mr. Craig. Is all filed, please,
Yeah.
okay. First up, I just want to kind of let the folks know what the ground will be. Mr. Craig, for the applicant, has a planning expert to testify tonight. Mr. Pimenta is his name. The council over the weekend got a packet of information regarding this project, this Skunkhill and Gordon's project that I have some questions on. We'll start with that, then Mr. Pimenta will testify, and after that, I guess we'll turn it over to Mr. Donald if he has any questions, and then after that, I'll start with the butters, 5 minutes or less, non-butters, 5 minutes or less, and then we'll just keep going around and around until everybody has a chance to speak. How's that sound? Okay? Okay, Mr. Craven, you have the floor. Maybe Mr. Epps can answer some questions about the book that was sent to us.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Frank Epps is here. We did submit to you, based on some questions that were asked, some production of some documents. I believe there are 14 different sections in a binder. Looks like this. Frank's here to answer any of all of these questions. Right.
Hi, Frank. Does anybody have any questions about the booklet that was given to us over the weekend? I had a couple of items, but give me a minute to find them. And if anyone else has any questions about the material, please feel free to ask each ask.
You want me to jump in?
Please, Sylvia.
I have a question on Section 8. Section 8, it was the last part, it said test reports.
Yes, ma'am.
The question is, what I don't know is what method was used. For instance, when they did the injection, when they did an injection test for these chemicals, all sorts of chemical names. I mean, on and on it goes. What the panel is made of. And there was some testing done, but what we don't know is, for instance, did they use pure water? I'm not sure you want to answer that, but as we know, the more CO2 in the air, the more acidic rain gets. So I don't know, because that could change the test results. So my husband's a chemist, and so he went over this with me, and quite frankly, that was one of his issues.
If you don't mind, I'm going to ask Mr. Benavides
So regarding the testing, it was water, they were running rainwater through through the panels. And what they did, just to be sort of, well, this site, what they did is they ran what's called T-clip, toxicity character potential. I'm sorry, I just mentioned it. So TCLP, toxicity leaching characteristic potential. So what that is to put water through something, they do it with soil, other kind of characteristics, in order to determine is anything going to be pulled out of the materials and potentially leach into the environment. So that's what they did. They ran a leaching test, and the leaching test came back with no metals being pulled out that would ultimately leach into the environment. So that's what they assessed.
Could you define gray water? You said they used gray water?
No, I'm
If I heard you
sorry.
right?
I said no. I'm sorry. They just used regular water that you would get from a domestic source. They didn't use rainwater. So you were asking if they used rainwater. It wasn't rainwater. It was just a standard water source.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have some other questions, but they don't specifically relate to the report. Questions about hurricanes, and you have given us the wind speed, for instance. What happens, what would be, do you have insurance? Let's suppose it gets built, and a hurricane rolls in, damages lots of the panels. Are you insured? How does that work?
The project not only has personal property and liability insurance, it also has business interruption insurance, and so that revenues for the facility would be maintained. But yes, it does have damage or personal property and liability insurance to rebuild the system upon a natural disaster. And once again, the project, we normally build our projects to 119 miles an hour, and that 119 miles an hour will sustain us at 10 minutes. And normal local ordinances for buildings usually runs about 110 miles an hour, and I believe that is what the ordinance is currently.
Another question, and it was brought to my attention by one of the abutters that's close to the transformer.
Yes.
The transformers that come. What their question was, it was just kind of common sense, and I didn't have an answer, and it was that, okay, if you put in these cement bases, like we go around the, or near the transformer, in the event that for whatever reason it leaks, what about water? What if water gradually starts to fill up? That was the question. How do you deal with that?
Well, actually, there is a built-in containment on the inverters and the transformers themselves, which are also defined and described in your packet. How do we deal with water? It's a very interesting question. I've never had that question before as to how to make sure that the water will drain out. But clearly, there's one thing that I would like to point out is in the package. I provided the MSDS sheet on the type of oil, if you will, that is used in the transformer. And it is FR3, and again, stated when I testified in the last meeting, it's 98.1% vegetable oil. There will be no contaminants whatsoever.
The last question I have is in your section 2, you provided us with a map and it has the abutters listed around it. I would like to know what's the closest, anyway, property line to the property lines. How close does it get for the Gordon property and also the Skunk Hill? What's the closest property?
So, if I may, for Mr. Benavides to answer the question, please.
So based upon your comment at the last meeting, we did all add all that information. What I didn't do is to look to see, so just give me a minute, I'll take a look.
Okay.
So for the Stonefield property, it's 276 feet.
And which property is that?
22 is the lake.
It just says 22 East Lane? Oh.
Feet to 25 Francis Parker.
And that's for the Jordan?
So that's right here. This is road distance. And then this road distance here is right.
Thank you.
Howard?
Floating on that water, through that water. There are the waters that are actually dispersed, but then the permanent code is usually that closes up. Can you explain that again? I think that's what she was doing.
I understand what Councilor Thompson was asking, but I believe you might be mistaking somebody else's testimony from my opinion. Because if I had known that information, I would have been able to answer Councilor Thompson's question. But that does make sense. But I'm sorry, I could not honestly answer that question.
Okay, because that was at the time of the last meeting.
And it might have been another.
But they said that there was a coating that goes in the basin and it allows the water to disperse as soon as the molecules of oil start to close up. And the company that installs that coating and that container carry their own insurance. And they do their own installation, carry their own insurance for that issue. And they have, at least they said at the planning board, they have never had an issue. Not that they couldn't touch it, but they have an issue. And it is a German company. And they both install and insure.
The inverters that we are looking, the transformers that we're looking here are manufactured by a company called SMA. And SMA is a German company. But I wanted to make sure that I could answer Councilor's question. Truthfully, I did not know the answer.
I think that's the transformer problem.
Again, in our transformers, by our company policy, we only use FR3 as the equivalent for the system.
All set, Governor? Thank you. Sharon, Scott, any received over the weekend? I think Sharon's got. I just had a couple quick questions. First of which was tab 11, page 7.
Yeah, you were referring to the end-of-life decommission.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
The very last paragraph starts with people who lease land for solar projects are encouraged to include an end-of-life panel management as part of the lease. I guess on these particular two projects, are they going to be owned and not leased? leasing of the owner of the property?
On these two projects, first off, let's talk about the Stump Hill or 145 Stump Hill property. This is property that we currently own, and so we will be owning the property as a company called Hopkinton Land Trust One LLC, which owns the property. We are developing a solar facility on that property, and then we will be bringing in a large utility or IPP to own the system itself, and they will lease the land from us. And in our leases, we do have decommissioning requirements and a sinking fund to ensure that the owner of the facility will decommission either at the end of useful life or at the end of power purchase agreement with the project. And so when we do go forward with the second piece of property, if we do go forward, which is something that we do not own at this particular point in time, which is known as the board of construction property, we would implement the same procedures.
Okay. I think I was aware of the decommissioning process, but this paragraph anyway speaks to the recycling of the panels at the end of their usefulness. So I guess, I know it was stated that the state of Massachusetts requires it. I'm not sure if the state of Rhode Island does. I guess, is it something you can put on the record about recycling these panels?
Oh, absolutely.
I guess it never really states whether we will or not, so that's what my question is.
Well, inside the agreement with the ultimate owner of the property, or excuse me, ultimate owner of the project itself, there is a requirement that the panels that they purchase are part of a voluntary recycling program that is sponsored by the manufacturer. Now, the obvious question would be, in 25 to 30 years, will that manufacturer be available? And so, therefore, secondary insurance is taken out on the contract with the manufacturer and bonded. So we, as a developer, require the owner, our ultimate owner, who's going to buy the project from us, to be able to ensure that they take out additional insurance, not only to cover the property and casualty side, but also to take care of all the decommissioning and the recycling of the project itself. So it's backed up by an independent third-party insurance company.
Thanks. Next question I had was the same tab, page 18, third paragraph from the bottom.
Yes.
It says sound impacts from electrical equipment can be modeled to the property line or nearest sensitive receptor of residence. Sound impacts can be mitigated with the use of enclosure, shielding, and careful placement of the ground generating equipment on site. The rule of thumb for siting noise generating equipment is that the sound impact can be reduced by half by doubling the distance to the receptor. I guess in your plan, I guess, has that been factored in?
Yes, it has been factored in. In fact, we have now moved the pad for the interconnection on the Wood property that's off of Katy Road. We moved that from the edge of the project into the project itself. It's approximately 350 to 400 feet now, further back into the project. But one thing that we've done in other communities, which can be done here without question, is we can take sound tests. We have an independent party that will come out and do a sound test on the property lines before construction, and then do sound test after the construction itself. We're doing this in the town of West Greenwich right now. We're doing our pre-construction sound test. And in doing this, we can find a way to, if there is any increase in the noise itself, either from the removal of vegetation and trees, or even from the system itself, we can find ways to mitigate it at that particular point in time and pinpoint. And I think that's the most appropriate and most effective way to be able to handle it.
So how do you, I guess if it, for some reason, increases over time, how do you mitigate that? Do you shield it? I guess it does reference shielding, but I
There are ways to shield it, not like putting up sound barriers around highways. If you would see them, we can put those areas up around the noise that is being, whichever generating the noise. But then again, I believe from our experience that these systems are far enough away where your ambient noise is going to be much louder than the amount of the comment that will come from the transformer or the inverters.
So given the distance now that you've set these back, I assume it's not going to be any greater than 40 decibels from the property line. So, sure.
The numbers that were given to me, the closest to a property line, I just want to qualify, was that the property line to the panels or the property line to the property line?
So what I gave to you, what we show on the drawings, are the distance from the panels to the homes.
Thank you.
So that's what I thought you were looking for at that meeting, and that's what I just quoted.
Thank you. That's what I needed to know. The other one was in reference to the insurance, because if this project went forward, it was something that would have to be set in stone, or it would have to be absolute. If this went forward, because we do have hurricanes, they might only be 15 years or 10 years apart. We have a plan for that. Could you provide us with, if you've done another project and it's completed, and you have insurance with them, is that something that you can share with us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's no problem, sir.
Thanks. Okay, so I think I have no questions.
I have a follow-up to so the closest home was 44 weeks away, 22 weeks away, and it was 276. And that's from panel to property line. That's right, from panel to property.
So what I quoted, and if you have, I gave it to the council, but there's a distance right here. So it's from the panels to the home. And again, that's what at least I heard the council was looking for. And that's 276 feet. The property is 22.
Right, and that is to the panel, but the inverters and the transformer pads are further inland, inside the solar panel.
Correct.
They're not on the outside.
Correct. They're
And then all of
significantly.
them.
Right. So one of the larger ones is right here, and I think, Frank, if you want to talk a little bit about the change, I know you're proposing to move that, is that correct?
Ms. Allen, could you do a favor on that lower section right there? Please, Alan, could you come back? On that lower section right there, could you point where the inverter pad and the transformer pads are on the drawing? Now, could you go right into the middle of that, where the road intersects go, now going to the left, please? Keep on going. Keep it right there. It's right in that area where the inverter, where the transformer pads will be. There will be no other transformers on the entire property. There will be inverters interspersed on the property itself, but the transformers themselves are down, and that's the only place where they'll be for the entire project.
That's on the Gordon property.
Yes,
Okay, but what about the Stonegate property?
there are inverters as there would be interspersed, but no
No
transformers.
transformers.
And one other thing I would like to point out, we talked about berms, and on the berms on the Stucco property near that closest area, we are proposing a 12-foot high landscape berm in that area. I don't have pictures with me as I had last time, but the key is that that will also provide additional screening for the property.
Frank, you want to just comment, I'm not sure if you have, I have a copy here, email that they sent to me and the council,
Yes.
I guess about the updates, one of which was what you just mentioned, which was the screening, the increased screening. The other one was the minimum setbacks and the pad containing connection. We spoke about pesticides, fertilizers, other projects that seem to be an eyesore in town right now. So,
Butters and others have reached out to me, and they've reached out to me through other channels that have asked me to address certain concerns. And these are also the concerns that came up in the last meeting. And so what I did is I sent an email to the town council on Saturday. Yes, and stated that that I wanted to address the concerns, and I wanted to be approachable to be able to address these concerns of the abutters and others who are not abutters, of course. But I stated that the proposed facility will have a minimum setback of 200 feet from anybody's property, and we can change the project design to ensure that happens as a minimum setback, property line to solar panels, and making sure that it has a minimum setback. The pad, I restated that the pad containing the interconnection transformers will be moved to the center of the proposed facility, as I spoke about just recently, just a second ago. And that the birds or other screening will be installed and maintained to ensure that the solar panels will not be seen from the butter's home. And I will work personally, collaboratively with the butters to ensure that this happens. And I've done this in every single project that we've done. I've heard concerns of pesticides being used and fertilizers on the property to maintain grasses. And unlike the other types of land developments that we might have, no chemicals are going to be used on this property. And this includes, but is not limited to, fertilizers, weed killers, or any other type of lawn-care product. And as with all of our projects, we don't use any chemicals. And there's a special reason that we're stating this on this property as well. On the majority of the Hopkinton sites, we intend to plant or create a pollinator habitat, which will have you to make such plans as a condition or any requirements for the project itself. The creation of pollinator habitats on solar fields has become a critical topic, which is highly supported by the University of Vermont and the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, by the way. And I attached a white paper for the council to review, which is called the National Strategy for Co-location of Solar Agriculture, to speak of this. And then finally, and I do have information now that I was able to obtain over the weekend on the specific types of pollinator grasses and other types of plants that are common to this area that would support within the fields itself. I got that from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. And then finally, I was told that a landscaping is desired on the property that's currently hosting a solar field that is highly visible on Arcadia Road. And I said to the council in my email that I'm open to discuss how we could design and fund the landscaping to improve this viewscape. However, I just want to make everyone aware that, one, this is not my property. This is not my solar facility. It's not under my control whatsoever. And so if we're going to help the town to create a suitable and required landscaping or screening for this property, I would ask that I would need cooperation from the town, I would need cooperation from the landowner, I would need cooperation from whoever owns a solar facility, I do not know. But I would be very happy to work with the town to make that happen.
okay, thanks. Any questions? Okay, I think that's, we have no other questions from Mr. Epps, or Mr. Craven will introduce your next witness.
Mr. President, this is Edward Pimentel. When we were last here, I submitted, I think it was a blue color. I think it was a blue complete report and cover. Mr. Pimentel is here. He is an expert planner. He will render opinions in reference to this project. He's either going to answer any questions anyone had in reviewing it, or give you a so-called a summary of what it is the report says.
And Mr. Pimentel, can you just give an overview, I guess, to the council on your report?
Sure, thank you very
From
much.
the planning perspective? Oh, okay. This is what we
I do. Edward Fernandez, that's P as in Paul, I-M-E-N-T-E-L. I do apologize, I had a conflict last time I was here, so thank you very much for the opportunity tonight.
speak, Mr. Pimentel.
So I was requested to do this project and do an analysis, a regulatory analysis, given the current Hopkinton zone regulations and the Hopkinton plan. There's two core patterns in regards to the introduction of solar projects to the state. In communities, regulated on either conditionally with their zoning regulations of the variety of residential districts, or like the town of Hopkinton, the city of Warren, they want to maintain the regulatory control pursuant to the legislative body of the council, and they do it by zoning. City wants to say they regulate, they render it permissible for every restricted zones, define the size of a piece of property, and then bring it forward for the planning board for advisory committee, and to the council to determine if the site is in general or the specific site is appropriate. So this is not a unique methodology. It's one where the regulatory authority is taking a look at the zoning board and giving it to the legislative body of the council. So when I reviewed the comprehensive plan, and a fairly comprehensive plan, it was affirmatively adopted on February 2018. I concluded that clearly since it's new, and one of the requirements of the state law now is that we address energy, one of the mandatory requirements, pursuant to the state guidelines. So I looked for that information, and sure enough, I found some information. And that's what led me generally to conclude that this was an appropriate avenue, pursuant to this council, and then to consider the specificity of the site. And what led me to that conclusion was this post or my report on the council bills and opportunity, was that it noted that this is the council now, in adopting its own comprehensive plan, thinking forward. And it gave its own recommendation 18, where it says, consider expanding the current zoning regulations to allow photovoltaic installations in residential districts. If you take that recommendation and think about it in its specific points, what it's really talking about is to amend zoning regulations to consider the appropriateness in residential districts. This is much similar to the avenue taken by a lot of communities. Where do we want to permit solar installations? Do we want to permit them by right? Do we want to condition permit them? Typically, in all communities, the overwhelming majority of the land acreage is zoned residential. It's unimproved, that's what we typically oppose, and that's what was considered here. So going forward, do we want to anticipate larger solar projects? Do we want to consider them in residential districts? Do we want to bring them municipal pursuit of our solar regulations? That isn't here now, so we need to pursue it here as zoning change. Having said that, I'm feeling comfortable from a regulatory perspective pursuing before the council. The second is the specificity of the site. I've now worked on probably about 24 solar projects, from the smallest in the state to the largest. And when we apply, I would do performance standards. People have a tendency to call this commercial neighbors or industrial neighbors. When you consider the performance standards and you apply the concerns in the comprehensive plan, concerns that are from the neighbors, that the typical one, the one that stands out the most, is typically the visual image. So when I sit down with the client, the first thing I ask the client is twofold. Number one, have we done an analysis, view-shed analysis, Mr. Texas, what we testified to. Number two, what are we going to preserve from a naturally vegetated state? And then number three, what are we going to add to enhance that to make sure that we screen the visual qualities of that image? That's really the key component to these projects, so that not intruding or putting or introducing a similar land use to residential, especially in areas not only residential. Mr. Epps, and if you ever take an opportunity to look at the setbacks, has really introduced a novel concept, not the vegetative herbs. They're really screening operation. You wouldn't even know that was even a solar station. So when we sat down and we analyzed, we had to organize where the potential for visual intrusion is. That's what the berms are going to be placed, outside of the areas where we can maintain mature vegetation, and then they potentially be as an understory growth and so forth. That's why landscaping is so important. And the final key component, actually, Mr. Epps stole my punter. We spoke to him tonight. And that is that unlike a typical traditional development, so somebody comes before a planning board and proposes a residential subdivision. You go through the steps, with the master plan, the final approval, and maybe conditions of approval, and you introduce it. You install the infrastructure to do that. Really what's key here is common contact, constant contact and communication between applicant and properties to make sure that there's visual quality is protected. So that's really the key component here when it comes to solar installations. So having concluded all that, I feel quite comfortable that this council can conclude that rezoning this property and amending the future land use map will maintain consistency with the plans.
Thank you. Who wants to start with Mr. Pimenta? Okay, so,
We have a couple of thoughts, Mr. Pimento. In your professional experience, could you tell us what you consider a large, medium, and small solar array?
Sure. This is clearly a large development. It's not a large development, it's a large development. What I would consider, well, once again, it also depends on the definition defined by the individual communities. Most communities define small, medium, and large based upon our foot, direct converse of what we do. But I just did one several months ago, literally the smallest one I ever did was in the town of Hopkinton. The entire solar array installation is less than half a million. That was a very small one. I was here previously on a large one. I was town working on several other large ones in the town of Tiverton, including one and one, for instance. So it's based on output, the megawatts. That's what typically how the community defines small, medium, and large.
We have a question. To what extent do you think governing board or the town council should consider the residential population of the homes in an area? Should that play a role, yes or no, as far as allowing the solar array?
I would state to the council, it's always within your authority, and it should be within your authority to ensure that the health, safety, and welfare of the residents is protected from any development, whether it be residential, industrial, or commercial. Provided the health, safety, and welfare of the neighbors can be protected and preserved. And when we talk health, safety, and welfare, we're also, we get into the semantics, it's the visual inclusion, health, safety, and welfare consideration. And then the people it is, and it should be protected and preserved. So if those elements can be met and complied, then I think the council should support renewable energy production. Every single town has to provide some share of introducing renewable energies. If a particular site can't meet those requirements, then there may be grounds to say that's not an appropriate site. I believe here the second we can meet the health, safety, and welfare of the neighbors. I think we could preserve and protect against any issue.
Okay, my next to last question. We have very numerous solar applications in the town, and experience with solar is concerning in this town. A lot of issues. My concern is, as councilman, if you want to control the expansion of solar, because actually what people are asking, the town council pick winners and losers. We say yes to every proposal because every taxpayer has a right to maximize use of that property, or should we say no to everybody, pick and choose? So, how do you say yes to one gun, one property owner, you know how to develop yourself, so that's what.
Understood. It's typically much more difficult to introduce an operation at scale in the area that's truly very densely developed. It's tough to scale the operations. I'm working on one in Warren right now, and we're having neighborhood meetings and so on. But what I can say from the perspective of solar versus architectural developments is that it's not a permanent disturbance of the land. I mean, 35 to 50 years, I know seems like a long time, but it is a permanent disturbance. Other by bringing land uses and permanent disturbance of the land would not be considered. I mean, even with solar installations, you still have to maintain and preserve the topsoil. It doesn't even disturb the agricultural elements of the capacity of the land to use it for future purposes. It's a good land-making tool, and if you look at the offsetting environmentals, for example, I'm working on a project right now, I'm going to take down some 37,000 trees, but the offsetting solar, what it would take to produce and consume the carbon dioxide is 100,000 trees. There's a 3-to-1 ratio, so there's a lot of benefits with solar, and if you could properly speak, it's a good use of the land, of the premises. Now, how do you control these? How do you regulate these? Like I said, there's different tools. Different cities and towns are placing size limits on them, how much tree clearing. There's different regulatory tools that allow you to help the community that really wants to see the introduction of solar, but doesn't want to see a massive regulation.
Final question is that town council is advised by the planning board, 5 members, 2 alternates, and 1 alternate. Vacancies. My concern is the planning board is not recommending for unanimous against. My question to you is, you're a planner, how do you think I should respond to the unanimous recommendation of the planning board of town council when they are unpaid advisors and developers?
Yes, it's a good question. I was here at the previous project too, when they gave me meetings and that as well. Here's just some simple few people in the council on that question. Right now, solar installations are directed to convert the presently zoned commercial industrial districts. The present commercial industrial districts comprise a very small quantity of land resources, but it's really the area we want some true commercial and industrial development. That which generates the offsetting tax revenue, so that the burden is not on the residential consumer. So if somebody came forward with a large-scale project, which we presently have on the commercial industrial facilities, they would also consume the best land resources. You can't believe that was the long-term intent of the regulations. They can't possibly be, because typically, especially the rural community that has minimum resources, tax revenues, they want to maintain that through tax generating revenue. So there had to be another path to realize renewable energy. And this is the path. I think the planning board's concerns is what you first stated, and that's the proliferation. They're afraid that if they deem a site appropriate to run to the site, that they're going to be open in their response and have to say that to every other site. I would argue that that's not the case. Every property stands on its own merits, but I think that was their concern as of the response.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Member.
What do you think is the what do you think is the percentage of replacing the town's energy? What do you think the goal should be? Should it be 50% of the country's or 25% of the country's?
Yeah,
Where do you find the
really got a second. So I don't know, we're really nice in the house. Urbanized environments gets really developed. They're doing their best to locate the areas where they have good neighborhoods to serve or close landfills and so forth, but they don't have a lot of land resources to accommodate. For example, the city of East Palm is in its 3rd phase on the closed landfill. This is why many of these permitting them. What the fair share should be, I don't know. It's got to be.
Discussion? Okay, Barbara?
To continue on that question, when the solar array goes into town, how much of these solar arrays, the energy that is created actually goes out of town, goes to a university or a hospital or an airport? It doesn't necessarily stay in town. As a planner, not just for town, but for the state, how do you address the fair share that towns must do within a state? The same way I don't carry prisons, I don't carry hospitals, I don't carry government buildings, I don't carry departments, I don't carry lots of tax-exempt property that other towns have to carry, and I use. So, what is your thoughts as a planner about another town like Hopkinton, Richmond, can use land to give that energy to the state because we use the state facilities, but we do not have them in the town, nor are they taxes that are taken over town land. What is your view as a planner?
That's a difficult question to answer. So can I answer an analogy? Outside of solar, perhaps the number one area of development that concentrating most likely resources is a lot of affordable housing. Affordable housing. I work on dozens of projects. In fact, I was the expert on the question for communities statewide will require our requirement to provide 10% of their housing. Many communities say, why do we need to provide 10%? We don't have half of that. That meets our needs when we do an analysis of our population. So why should we provide 10%? Because everybody benefits when there's affordable housing. But then the argument becomes those communities that are heavily linked with incomes that are more moderately priced versus the more affluent, they get a good. So they say, why aren't those communities providing a fair share? Why are we all sharing? So there's a lot of food for thought and trades brought out there. It's how we're going to do this. Because I just tell you, right around the corner, the affordable housing statute is going to be revised for the third time. It's coming out for the reason. The inequities, and who's providing the reason. And I think what's going to come down to is funding sources when it comes to affordable housing. I think what's going to happen is those communities that may not necessarily require it or don't have the infrastructure will have to pay up. And then to offset the communities, because we can accommodate the affordable housing where the infrastructure is placed, so that there's at least some equity in there. That's how that's going to be addressed. Regarding renewable energies, it may come down to that as well. You know, we want to preserve some open spaces. We want to see the production of renewable energy. We want to balance all this. All cities and towns benefit from all this. It may come down to that because of the simple. But that's something that the state has to tackle. It's difficult.
So it's an ongoing issue.
Absolutely, and that's why.
Decade by decade. Because different things will come up at different times, and people have to share or not.
The same board that provide guidance to renewable energy is having another conference where we're regularly. We learn from our experiences, we learn from project by project, and then we change. Same with wind. We learn so much from wind, and then we now have to the point where we actually map the state, we know where true wind energy production will be, where it's most compatible and so forth. We're constantly learning project by project.
Okay, Bob. Anyone else for Mr. Presenter? Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, Alan Benavides has placed a couple of large maps of projects on that board, it's been abundantly clear from his looking at the one on top, which is the distance between all the neighbors and the project itself. The bottom one, though, however, addresses an issue that was, there were several questions asked me last year, and that is, how many trees are going to be removed? And where are those trees going to be removed from? And how many trees will be left? There was some dispute back and forth with tree expert as well as the engineer. So if I wouldn't mind, Alan, you just walk me through that last. Yeah.
If you're going to be pointing to that line,
I was just going to ask.
You can't
Want to
see
raise it up? I was going to ask that question. So one of the questions that came up the prior times is where specifically the tree cutting is going to occur. I think Council Thompson had questions about quantifying it. So what we did is we put this second drawing together as a supplemental submittal that came from Woodard and Turner. And we talked about the first one earlier. What this one is, okay, so here's, again, this is a plan showing both of the arrays. Stone Hill, Gordon, two arrays of property. And what the color code is the light green are areas under existing conditions that are currently cleared. So those of you who are familiar with the site, if you drive by, you certainly can see the front part of the site is cleared. That's the reason it's shown in the light green. There's an area that's cleared right here as well, an area cleared here, and there's an area cleared here. The panels that we're putting in, surely the number of the panels and we'll put it up in this cleared area here, so essentially clearing there is not going to occur. What we'll be doing is Frank described earlier, is putting in buffering and berms and so forth. We have this area here. There will be tree clearing associated with this area and this area to install panels. But the dark green shows the remaining of the site. So what you see, anything in this green is these areas will remain free essentially until the duration of the project. So the numbers that I presented during the last meeting are more reliable than drawings, but I believe this is about 40%, which is the parcel here. 60% of the lot will remain clear, which is the parcel here, and then I believe this is 50%. So as far as the three parcels that are concerned, anywhere from 40 to 60% of the existing trees that are there now will remain for the duration of the project. So as you can see, the dark green shows a substantial amount of the parcels remaining uncleared as trees and houses.
any questions?
It was stated, it's in the report, the forest plan, that it's 6,700 trees, 6,700 right around there. The amount of trees, has changed that.
So,
And the previous proposal where we were talking about more than 30,000 trees, this one is 6,700.
so I'm going to defer that to the expert who's put that. So living current development plan showing him and the three experts who received to talk about the three.
Mark Trumbull, forest forest assessment and forestation. Not sure if I heard the question correctly. There was a difference between the number of trees I mentioned the first time and the report. Is that?
I don't think there's a difference.
No, it's
Just the total numbers of three.
Just want to confirm.
It's page 7, section 5. The very end.
So for the 47 acres, woods, there'd be a total of 6,700 trees.
Thank you.
Mr. President, that concludes my presentation. And we should move on to the agenda of the neighbors.
Okay.
Mr. Dunn.
Thank you. Jim?
I was going to suggest,
Jim, do you want me to bring this over there?
I was going to suggest, how about taking the neighbors first? Because I'm going to be here all the time. Okay?
Okay. Mr. Donnelly is just going to the neighbor's residence. We'll start with the players first. Whoever wants to speak, come to the mic, state your full name and address. And you've got 5 minutes or less, and then we'll circle around until we get everyone needs to speak tonight.
My name is Janice Apple, and I'm 20 East Lane, the second closest to the Stockville property. I'm just going to read the things that I've
Sure.
written on. I'm opposed to large-scale solar arrays in residential areas, for the same reason as many of my neighbors. For one, clear cutting of large expanses of trees of land takes away from the rural beauty of the area, which is the reason why many of his children live here. I'm also concerned about lower property value. I'll be very close to the array and will have close view of either the panels or the berms, which would supposedly block the panels. Both options seem unsightly. In the fall, winter, and spring, I will have a clear site project, which in my opinion is far too large for a residential area. It would not be hidden amongst the expansive trees, as had been mentioned at the previous meeting back in January. Every day at work, I look out the window and watch the project in progress in Richmond at the corner of Stilson Road and Buttonwood Road. This is a much smaller project than the one proposed behind my house, yet the level of disruption is shocking. Constant noise from the equipment, constant truck traffic falling trees away. In our residential area, the roads are narrow, and there are many people who walk, jog, or walk their dogs. This is not only disruptive but dangerous to those neighbors. The roads are already not in great shape. Bridge Street is one example. The trucks will cause even more road damage, which I'm afraid in the end will fall on the town to repair. Not entirely against solar, because logical arrays do not belong in a residential area. I would guess that many people would not want to be in favor of a large array in your backyard, and I would have never chosen my house if it were with solar panels from within, and I think that a prospective buyer may feel the same way.
Thank you, James. You guys are all about this first, I guess, right? It's not about that.
Yes.
Mr. President, my name is Colin Steffen, and I'm the property owner of 22 East Lane, the property that's I own 22.
What was your first name?
Colin. Yep, I'm Colin. And purchased my property 1 year ago, actually, in April. Now, the same time as the property behind me was also sold. And so I moved here because I absolutely don't like this area. I've actually lived for a house before this for about a year, and found really the quiet corners, that corner, and possibly the other picture. I think it's really hard to tell what's in any other map. This one really highlights, I think, my location best. Right where that is a downward slant, it's a tiny creek, about 3, maybe 4 feet wide in some spots. It's really active all the way around. And right at the corner where that place is, it's very helpful. Let's see if my hand is steady enough to get this. Right in here. So I live right in this corner right here. The water runs, there's an oak creek that runs all year round right here. And it deposits in a little tiny spring my well is located right near my house. It's not a very big problem. And it's quite lovely, actually. It's bubbly year round. I feel the size of this project, just in where it is located in my house, the water runoff over several years, the groundwater is going to impact water that's coming from my well. Not only that, it's also comes out of the years. So there are a few concerns. One, the water quality. Two, my house is right against that line. And the visual effect is one that I feel is going to have an unsightly view from the back, impacting the quality of our lifestyle there. But also, should we ever want to move, it's going to really impact, the home sale price of my home. Additionally, it's so close to my home. In the 7 months of dead winter that we have all around us, that hum is just a compound effect. I think the concerns addressed separately about the visual, the audible, the long-term environmental effects. Cumulatively, I think that my spot makes me extremely sensitive to all of these combined. And so it's really devastating because I came in from Haven. We have a really lovely corner lot, and it's very quiet. I love my neighbors, and concerns that you have, I think, I would like to actually start taking that back. I think, say the term anti-solar, and you throw anti-solar around me. I'm absolutely not anti-solar, but I want to just flat out make that crystal clear. But I am against solar and development in residential areas. And I think by saying, solar and residential, I think the message is here is let's adopt solar on your home and your property and your residence, so you can contribute to supporting this green sustainable environment. But also it's important to not trade green for green sustainability. So I think I'm running out of steam. I thank you so much for listening to me tonight, and I appreciate your hearing us all tonight. And appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to leave this here in case anyone wants to use it. So, you push the button on it. So it's right here.
Hello.
Hello, Jane.
I'm Jane Grafton. I live at 135 Frontier Road. I know many of you know it's my house. Councilor Davis came to my house when he was Thursday. So I know you know where it is. I can see the red barn. I can see the farmer's house. I don't want to see a tall brook. I know. That's okay.
Jane, can you direct your attention to
I'm sorry. I told you I was going to cry. It's a commercial property in the middle of a residential area. Do you not get that? We're not talking about any commercial area around us. We are not talking about 3 abutters. We are talking about 63 abutters. We are talking about 40.5 years. When you promised it was residential, and now you want to make it commercial. You can call it what you want. You can say it's solar, but it's still commercial, and you're putting that ring around my neighbors. We are not in the middle of anything that looks commercial. I hope you get back to me.
Kevin, Elise Messenger, 5 Beverly and Drive. We want to communicate our opposition to the solar panel. My husband has been a resident since about 2005. We used to live down the street with me. We're still going to adopt
Yes.
We grew a family and we decided a larger home was in order. So we moved right down the road. We were looking at other communities. but we fell in love with Hopkinton. Hopkinton is a rural area. We wanted to raise our children here. We bought our home. We were told that the area behind us would never be built on, otherwise it would have been a deal breaker. We lost a significant amount of money because my husband bought his house at the height of the market, but we were immediately reassessed by Hopkinton. Fine. We chose to live in a community that was rural and great school systems. We want to raise our children in this community. They play in the woods. They catch salamanders. They climb trees. I think, Mr. Jimenez, that you have commented about answering the question about the health and safety and welfare of the residents. Well, putting up a solar array impacts the welfare and the health of your residents. And I do question safety with, chemicals, and God forbid, talk about hurricanes, and talk about being insured, but what if there's projectiles and it goes into our backyard and into our home? There are bigger questions here. I did email town council. I received 2 people who acknowledged me, so I do want to submit my email to record. And then I also want to submit a drawing that my daughter had done with a school project a couple months ago when I came home. And it said what she sees in her community: driveways, bushes, trees, hills, and houses. Nowhere on here should there be solar panels. Lady Worthy Library, Hopkins Library, Hope Valley School, shouldn't be solar panels. So I want to submit these. I'm a psychologist. It is important to raise your children outside, running amok. Again, I cited in my email, many of you grew up in this area, in the residential, rural setting. Please don't take that from my children. Because it's not a significant amount of money that, one, our taxes are going to be reduced. And if people want their taxes reduced, move, okay? Get out of the car. For this way of life. And then and my daughter wanted to say a couple things too. She wrote a letter on her own accord.
I disagree with the solar panels because I don't know where the animals are going to go when their homes are destroyed. But they could live on our property, which I would not like because our property does not have enough room for all those animals, and I go outside a lot. Another reason is that we already have solar panels in front of our neighborhood, and I do not like them, and I don't want more solar panels. A few other reasons are that we could see the solar panels if we go down to the stream, and I don't want miles long rows of solar panels, and we don't get any energy from them. This is my opinion.
Kevin Messier. This is my family. I also just want to add one thing. We live in a republic where we vote being asked to represent us. I just implore you all as readers to really take into effect what we opponents what we're really trying to do around here. You as representatives, please do this. Yes.
Hello, my name is Danielle Forker, and I live at 20 Berkeley Drive.
Danielle, please.
Yes, Danielle Forker. Can you say your address again, please? 20 Berkeley Drive. 20 what, River? Beverly Inn. It's in the Arcadia development. I have a letter here. It was composed by my family. I also have copies of it for all of you if you would like them.
You can do that. Sit down.
When it comes to me, I'll read it first. All right. Dear representatives, our family lives at 20 Beverly Inn Drive.
Drive, Hope Valley, in the Arcadia Farms neighborhood, a family community which will be directly impacted by the Skunk Hill Solar Project. After attending both the town planning and town council meetings and hearing the developer's plans, we are vehemently opposed to this industrial solar facility being placed in this residential area. We moved from Washington, D.C. to Hope Valley a little over 20 years ago. We chose Hope Valley specifically because it was a rural community. We love the natural beauty. My parents wanted me and my sister to grow up surrounded by trees and nature. Arcadia Farms is a beautiful family neighborhood, often visited by resident deer, wild turkeys, foxes, and the occasional bobcat. Spot rezoning this residential area to put in a commercial solar field with over 70,000 panels is inconsistent with the town's rural character we moved here for. We are all for green energy, but this is counterproductive to kill hundreds of trees that filter our air and destroy the habitat of thousands of animals, large and small, and say it is clean energy. Besides bulldozing the land, the developer will fence in hundreds of acres, destroying migratory areas and forcing out native species. Once this habitat is destroyed, it will take decades to replace. Solar energy is wonderful, but it should be in pre-existing commercial zones and has no place in the middle of a rural neighborhood. We believe the environmental problems with this array are numerous. Our family has attended town meetings and heard the developers, but still has many concerns with the environmental impact from this industrial-sized development. We are concerned with toxic chemicals from this array polluting the water table and poisoning our families. Who will make sure our drinking water stays safe? We are concerned with runoff fouling local streams and ponds, plus the potential flooding of local neighborhoods. We are concerned with plans to plant spreading grasses, which are obviously not native to this area. Who will monitor this to ensure it doesn't take over local wetlands? Does the town plan to monitor this? Will that not cost taxpayer money? On top of this are concerns with the transformers that will be used so close to neighborhoods, especially with a large number of children in this area. What assurances do we have that the radiation output will not cause long-term health problems? What about the noise pollution and buzzing this will cause? Who will monitor this? The developer has not addressed these concerns to satisfy my family that this is not a health hazard. We are also concerned how the town will be able to deal with a fire in such a huge industrial array. Our fire department is wonderful, but we do not think a fire department with limited training can handle a fire at such a large scale in such a zone, especially considering the toxic chemicals that could be released. This area has been known to experience a high number of lightning strikes, and we ourselves have had multiple trees struck and at least one catch on fire. How will a large-scale brush fire in this area be addressed? It is also our firm belief that the town will not see an increased tax revenue that they think they... It is also our firm belief that the town will not see the increased tax revenue they think this array will generate. Anything the town gets from this development will be offset by plummeting home values in our area and neighborhoods surrounding this array. People considering moving into this town will not purchase a home in rural Hopkinton if they think the town will change the zoning after they buy. It is a matter of trust. Ours is a rural community, not an industrial park. Arcadia Farms and Lisa Lane are family neighborhoods. People here support the local economy. We work and volunteer at schools, recreation activities, and local churches. We are part of the fabric of this community, just as much as the trees and animals are. We implore the town council to reject the proposed zoning changes for the potential solar project in this area. Please keep what we love best about Hopkinton in Hopkinton. Respectfully, the board.
Hi,
so many hazards and health issues that we're concerned with our children playing in our backyard, with solar panels in our backyard. These multi-million-dollar companies, they don't care about us as people. They're looking at us as a dollar sign. That's it.
Right.
They don't care about us. We're human. These are our homes that we're about to destroy and take away all of our value. They don't have any of the solar panels in there. We don't want them in our backyard. We're here to protect our children, and we beg you, please look at us as people, not dollar signs. Okay? We are counting on you.
I have just one page of numbers, so I'll get to it. We are at 25 Francis Farm, which means we are the closest, most impacted house in the area. I'd like to first take a moment and say, well, at this point, I'd like to thank Council first, Council Davis, for applying to us with the concerns. Appreciate that. We came to the last public hearing to learn more about what this was about, and we were blown away by what we saw. The conceptual drawing that first went up reminded me of a book, a children's book that we gave our kids. It's called The Grants Way. And there was almost nothing but silver. There was very little blue. It looked like a scene from the Dutch New Jersey. We left that meeting feeling like we had no choice but to sell it. While there was still time to do so. And I tried to look at things very objectively. So since that meeting, we've done research, we've talked to a lot of people. We've listened to many different perspectives, and we've heard people who are against the panels and talk about their concerns, forestation, flooding, runoff, metal loss flooding, concerns about health, and all these things. We've heard proponents say that Hopkinton desperately needs the money, and this is a good right to generate taxes. We've heard people say that solar farms are a way of preserving farmland. We've heard concerns that taxes here are so high that landowners can't afford to hold on to large parcels of land. Elderly people being forced out of their homes. We've heard those concerns too. We've heard neutral parties tell us that we're either going to get densely packed affordable housing or commercial solar. So take your pick. None of this paints a very favorable picture of Hopkinton. And I want to ask what's going on, what are we facing? We bought our home a decade ago knowing, no way of knowing that this was going to be an outcome of this. I don't want to live next to a commercial solar plant. If I did, I would have bought a house next to this stuff. I don't want to live next to densely packed duplexes either. I mean, if I did, I would have bought a house on the outskirts of Hopkinton Road. We bought into none of those scenarios. We bought into Hopkinton. We did that because it's great communities, rural community, country setting. This project is not about farmer looking for tax relief and solar. It's not about the establishment of a new farm. We're not going to take our kids to these fields and pack bananas. We're not going to sample local electricity. This is about chopping up the residential neighborhoods for money. Now, I have nothing against these developers. They're businessmen like me. They're just trying to do their jobs. They're trying to work with the residents to make this acceptable and interesting. This project is just an application. I do sympathize with people who are struggling to pay property taxes, but the projections for this project are an annual tax revenue of somewhere between $100,000 and $120,000 annually. And that's not enough to pay for a plow truck, let alone keep somebody in their home or pay for a subscription. So why are these our best options? Why is this what we're settling? Why is it that you can drive to North Stonington and see so many active farms, land, forests, and commercial solar panels? They just just built a brand new house. What are they doing right? Are they struggling? This is just one man's opinion, simple opinion, but I think the problem here is that the residents are forced to show them the town's tax burden. The only way to solve this problem is through economic development. We need to bring businesses to Hopkinton. We need jobs for our residents, more businesses paying taxes. We need to, solar panels, they're not going to create jobs, they're not going to have taxes. My suggestions don't need big box stores and strip malls and stuff like that. We need new and creative ideas to establish professional business parks and zones consistent with planning. Our objectives are planning board, our town character, and only through economic development can we revitalize Hopkinton. We need to bring in business. These projects are dividing our community, putting citizens against each other. The message here is that no parcel of land is safe. Everybody's vulnerable because if you rezone this land in a residential neighborhood, it happened to us. So I stand here today just respecting these the three basic things. Please preserve our neighborhoods, protect our landowner rights, find new and innovative ways to bring economic development to the town without compromising our property values, closing detriment to our government. Thank you for your time today, representing your town.
Thanks, Councilman.
Hello, I'm Jim Dillon. I live at 23 Lisa Lane, which is Whoa. Gotcha, okay. I live right there, right across from 22. Okay, I look at 22 and 20. I look at their houses out in front of me. I see past them, I see into this field. When you Google Earth, when you go look at property to buy, people Google Earth. They want to see what's around. They're not going to want to move in your neighborhood with all of this. That being said, I want to say something else. 5-0. It wasn't the Red Sox scoring that day. It's what the planning board voted. They voted Mr. Landolfi, respectively, you live up here, correct?
It is.
You're
I can't really see it.
Yes. Elizabeth Ward, right. And you abut the Arcadia Park, correct? So they could not put this behind your house.
Correct.
Okay. I would hope you understand that we don't live this apart to protect ourselves. I do understand the property rights. I do understand the energy needs. I also know that where I live right there, when it's quiet, I hear the traffic from 95. You can't see 95 anyway. If I can hear the traffic from 95 there, what am I going to hear from you? There's a lot to be said. I don't want to take up a lot more time, 4 hours to the other side, but I hope you listen to our side. I truly think this is just not a good idea for Hopkinton. I moved here in 2002. I don't want to move out of here in 2002. I want to say this isn't appropriate. Please take into consideration what these people tell me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alan.
Hold on one second. Sorry about this.
I'm Alexander Matt. I live at 19 Francis Barber Drive, and I back the Gordon Field property. I just feel that it's not appropriate to spot zone these 3 pieces of land into commercial and put up a large industrial facility in the back of our residential neighborhood where we all want to be in a residential area and not around close to rural, kind of get away in the woods. That's where we are, that's where we bought. And I'm not looking to be on a commercial property, large solar development. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I am Will Machado. I live at the end of 6 Michael Lane. I'm the largest provider on the east side of this project, and I'm for this project. Change is inevitable. All change is going to happen sometime or another. I bought the property. The realtor said that farm would never be changed. I know that. I grew up in a farm. Change always happens. The way this project seems to be presented, looks like they're going to do a heck of a job to help the neighbors. I hope it goes through.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Pierce. I live at 51 Arcadia Road. Dave Pierce? Dave Pierce, yes, David. Plat 18, lot number 9. My property abuts the property there. And, from what I understand, the wires are coming right down that field to a telephone pole right outside my swimming pool. I already have a solar farm across the street from me already that I can see out of my living room, right at the end of Francis Barber Drive. Anybody drives by there, they'll see that it's a piece of property there now because of that. Anyway, my house is not in the historical district, but it is a historical house to the town. Built in 1875, the H.C. Richmond House, and this project is coming down between two historical properties. I think this is an interesting project, but I think it's in the wrong location. And I respectfully ask you to vote this down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you taking neighbors next?
Yeah, neighbors next. Yeah. That's all the abutters, yes? Any abutters?
I thought all the abutters were in the front.
Okay.
Okay, hi, Luann McCormick, Lisa Lane. There are reasons that towns have comprehensive plans, land use maps, and zoning regulations. There are many practical and safety-related reasons that residential neighborhoods are separated from commercial, industrial, and manufacturing activities. That is why our planning board commendably and unanimously voted down this proposal. If you take a look at the comp plan, goal H1, where it talks about the fact that we want to maintain that Hopkinton will be characterized by safe, secure, and attractive residential neighborhoods. The developer said, "You'll never even know it's there." This location is the closest and most heavily populated of any proposal to date. Heavy industrial construction equipment, high voltage electricity, and children don't mix. Do you think a 6-foot fence with danger signs on it are going to stop kids? On the contrary, kids are inquisitive by nature. They climb fences. It will be an accident waiting to happen. If a child is injured or, God forbid, killed, is it really about the money then? Not only will it be a foreseen and preventable tragedy, but the town of Hopkinton would be liable along with the solar company, and that lawsuit would easily bankrupt this town. Just because someone has a piece of land and they want to sell it, doesn't mean it's the right place for an industrial electrical utility. I think we should consider, the town should consider, forming a committee to study current land use maps and see if there are any portions of land that would be appropriate for solar, that aren't close to neighborhoods, that don't have kids running around outside. The other thing I've heard a lot about is the fact that poor residents, lower income residents, are going to lose their houses because they can't pay their taxes. Well, there's tax exemptions available for them. As long as they're 65 and they live in the town for 5 years, we can go ahead and apply for a tax exemption. And if you take a look at the median price of a Hopkinton home, that's going to take about $1,750 a year off their taxes. That's available for anybody over 65 who's been here for 5 years.
is that it talks about the fact that Hopkinton as a town needs to address green energy to offset the town's energy needs. And then when they talk about possibly doing solar energy in private and residential areas, it's for residential use, not for a developer to come in, clear cut trees, put up 70,000 solar panels, and sell all the energy elsewhere. That's not what this is talking about. Then the developer said you'll never even know it's there. I want to know how you screen the view from dozens of second-story windows. That's going to be one heck of a burn. We have 3 new neighbors in Lisa Lane that had absolutely no idea this was going on when they bought their houses. One of them tonight, Colleen was here. Neither the seller nor the agents told them. And we know why. Because they knew it was a big negative. It would hurt the property value. One of the sellers specifically moved out because of this threat. They got wind of it and they bolted. Okay? So that was definitely a factor in the others. There are over 60 directly abutting homeowners and countless nearby neighbors. And I was a realtor for 20 years. And I can state without reservation that these property values will drop. The only question is by how much. And if you take a look at just a minimal 5% drop, which is, it's not going to be 5%, just at 5%, it's going to take $1,250,000 in property equity out of Hopkinton residents' pockets. These are taxpayers. If it's 10%, it's over $2.5 million that these people are going to lose in property value. And I don't understand how this can even be being considered this close to residences. It's just beyond my comprehension. If I had children, I would be panicked. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Lynn.
Hi, my name is Richard Covell. I live at 39 Lisa Lane. Was happy to be here to hear me. I just want to begin by saying that in this presentation, the council was told about the generally favorable response to the planning board. And I was there, and that was true. And the question then becomes, what was it that the planning board unanimously found objectionable? And I spoke briefly at that night. So what I wanted to say was, it's not the responsibility of the planning board to evaluate the quality of the presentation. These gentlemen, I've done a dynamite presentation, I've done all the homework, and it's what they do. They take this on the road to every time they hear it, and they've heard all your questions before. So they love to hear questions about what's reaching off the panels, and is this happening, how many trees and how many inches high, because it's a distraction, it's a misdirection, in the same way a magician does his thing. So what I want to say is, much of this has been covered, so I won't go over it again. People are talking about, the term is visual intrusion. I need to remind you the number of abutters and the solution, and they can't pretend that they're not there and the visual intrusion is not real. So what they've said is, we're going to put a 12-foot wall of dirt behind the property. That's, well, yes, we know, we have to put one here, and we have to put one here, but one day there may be trees on it. Well, this is a small consolation for a guy that's going to go out in his backyard or something. He might think he's going to have some friends over, and what he's going to see is a 12-foot wall of dirt extending in both directions as far as he can see. It's a ridiculous idea. And the problem is that this is a textbook case of exactly the place not to put it. Now, the one thing that really hasn't been discussed, and I want to see this here on the record, is that everybody's discussing about, well, what if there's overflow? The question is asked was going to be water overflow. And that is an insignificant question compared to what I came across looking at the maps. This is what I want to get included in it. I have 2 maps that are part of the plan. One of them is the groundwater and wellhead protection area. And the other one is the water supply resources and sensitive water supply areas. And there are maps that accompany these. You see them, they're in the plan, I've only printed out a couple. But what I've taken the liberty to put a triangle around is the area that we're talking precisely, not nearby, not abutting, but precisely on top of the triangle described by Skunk Hill Road, Fairview, and Arcadia Road. And if you look on this map, this one is the sensitive water supply area, you'll see that it has one of the two really large aquifers in Hopkinton. Now, it is part of the planning board's responsibility to decide and protect the safety of our water system. Because unlike Warwick or Pawtucket or anywhere else, we don't have city water. We don't have any supply lines. And so the 400 properties that are within 800 yards of this proposal we're going to divert 75 acres worth of water that used to go into the ground. It's not a comfort to me to hear these proposals of this development say, well, if it runs off, we'll catch it somewhere. I don't want to catch it somewhere. I want it in my well. I want it in this aquifer and then this recharge area that's identified as sensitive and critical to Hopkinton. So where it goes on the surface is of less concern than where it goes after the surface. And so I finally want to say, as a summation, that I would like to personally thank every member of the council who in the past has protected us from an abandoned dog track, empty lots of strip malls, derelict big box stores, and every other scheme that's come down the pipe in the time that I've been here. And I want to personally thank in advance every member of the council who will protect us from the potential damage from this. Because unlike the other things, you can take care of a big box store with a wrecking. You can go in there and knock it down. It's expensive, but you can do it. But if we end up diverting water that needs to go into this protected, sensitive groundwater area, it will be irreplaceable, and there won't be any way to fix it. And I don't need to tell you that here in Hopkinton, if you have no water, you have nothing. So I just want to be sure that this,
give us the least of the
I want to be sure that it's getting entered into the record, so there's no misunderstanding of where we're putting this.
Hello?
My name is Emily Lynch, and I'm at 6 Beverly Ann Drive. I live across the street from a butter. My husband, Brian, and my 2 sons, Anderson and Bertie, are here. I'm talking on behalf of them. I just wanted to put my letter on the record that I sent to you in March, the end of March, and thank you to Councilman Hurst and Councilwoman Papa for responding. Appreciate that. I just want to reiterate the point that this goes against the comprehensive plan of our town, and the planning board voted against it. So please, listen to all the abutters, the neighbors who have spoken to you, signed petitions, written letters, and please vote against this project. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Beaver. I live at 5 Anna Drive. It's within the neighborhood, so these folks are my neighbors. They're not in the water. Got 3 things, 1 comment and 2 questions. The questions are similar to the first comment is related to what Jim was talking about. The Atlantic Solar folks are talking about in terms of visual, I guess the visual pleasure we will get because of these burns in the way. It's not as supposed to be. Well, if I were to buy a house, one of the tools I'm going to use is Google Maps. Google Maps looks down. Those burns aren't going to hide those solar panels. One of my choices to where I live was based on the fact that we were as depicted by Google Maps. So when you had all these solar panels go in there, the berms are going to hide those. So that's my first comment. So that was a good point. The 2 questions that I have are related. First is have we considered the fact that Atlantic Solar, I think they've done a great job in terms of detailing the plan that they hope to invoke to build this project. But as I understand it, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, once you develop it, you turn it over to someone else?
Dave, just direct your questions to
Okay.
council, not to...
Is it your understanding that they will turn it over to somebody else? Yes? Yes. Have we talked to the people who will manage this thing for 20 to 25 years? That's the first question. Have you? Okay. The second thing is, you folks have already decided on a project that is, as I see it, at sort of the top level, very, very similar to Brushy Brook. We're talking about removing trees, bulldozing, we're talking about water quality, the impact on the neighborhood, although there's more abutters and neighbors here. But you already decided in one direction for Brushy Brook. How can you not be consistent in a project that's so similar to that? You've already disapproved that. How can you approve this one? That's my rhetorical question.
Eric, you got 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know, you got your next time we're going here, Frank. I got exhibits. It's always people have to wait behind me. So I just want to first, comment on some of the expert testimony. I'm going to try to be quick here. Mr. Ed Pimentel is no stranger to Hopkinton, as we know. We've seen him on many occasions in front of the planning board and the town council. One of the things that, although he's no stranger to Hopkinton, he's not completely up to date. One of the things that he cited was one of the recommendations of the planning board, number 18, which gave this project to the planning board for further exploration, and said that they should consider ways to possibly expand solar energy in
residential zones by amending the zoning regulations. What Mr. Pimentel is apparently not aware of is that the town council and the planning board just engaged in an 8 or 9 month process, reviewed all of that, and enacted on January 22nd a new zoning ordinance. So I'm not sure what he's talking about and why a case-by-case evaluation of a particular parcel, which is the classic definition of spot zoning, would qualify under recommendation number 18. It doesn't. This is the same planning expert, by the way, who told the planning board at the prior meeting last fall that spot zoning is an urban myth, which, if it's an urban myth, I don't know why it's defined in every legal dictionary I've ever looked at. And my rhetorical question would be to the town council: if a parcel that is surrounded, a parcel in a residential zone that's surrounded by 63 abutting residences that completely surround it with no commercial property in the neighborhood, and then is rezoned to commercial, if that's not spot zoning, what is it? I want to comment also very briefly on I mentioned this at the last regular meeting of the town council, the landowner rights, the so-called landowner rights petition. I don't want to dwell on it because I think it's actually pretty nonsensical. No one is opposed to landowner rights. Landowner rights are all set forth in our zoning district use table. And for example, under some of the uses in residential property that are expressly prohibited include motels, halfway houses, stone crushing, sand and gravel, sawmills, planing, manufacture of furniture, paper, tires, leather canning, fabricated metal. This list goes on and on and on. Plumbing, electrical supply, dry goods, automotive, restaurants, bars, dry goods, sporting goods, bookstores, banks, insurance, real estate, brokerage, funeral services, crematories, amusement parks, bowling alleys. Give it God. So, my point is, commercial solar is one of those prohibited uses. It's not a right, okay? What is a right is residential development. It's actually a prohibited use, so let's just get over it. Now that's bad enough, but what really bothers me is one of the town councilors here has been referring to this petition as our petition. She's taken credit for inserting a little too clever by half, 3% reference in here that doesn't really mean anything, and the petition reads, "We, the undersigned residents, taxpayers, voters of Hopkinton, support zoning amendments for the purpose of allowing utility-scale solar developments in areas of the town, regardless of the current zoning." Well, why do we have zoning regulations if we're going to support commercial solar developments in town, regardless of zoning? This petition is signed by President Landolfi and Councilor Capello. Why on earth did you vote in favor of a solar ordinance that expressly precludes solar energy in residential zones if it's your belief that we should support it all through town, regardless of current zoning? That's virtually against the law that you just enacted, so I don't understand. Now, I know Mr. Landolfi often says that he's a numbers guy, and he has voted for every single one of these projects, and he has said over and over again, we need the money. I'm not going to quote him, but in the recent emails, he said things like, I know the town finances, I have to strike a balance. We need the money, plain and simple. There are not many solutions. Councilor Capalvo.
Eric, let's stick to the project.
I am sticking to the
point. You're picking apart items that I sent out an email to someone else other than you, and you're also, your time is 5:36, so wrap it up. With something other than a pointed finger at me or Barb. All right, I've had it.
All right. Frank's had it with me, so let me just get to that.
I've had it like 10 months ago.
Right. First Amendment rights, public comment. You
Public comment, everyone has 5 minutes.
Why don't you tell me what you want me to say?
5 minutes or less.
All right, here's what you have in front of you. I want to demystify it for you. According to our own tax assessment, the median value of a single-family home, tax assessment, median tax assessment is $220,000. Okay? Got that? So if this project, according to the developer, is going to produce between 20 and 21 megawatts alternating current. I'm leaving aside the permitting fees for right now. The tangible property tax for alternative energy on the larger figure is $105,000. Okay? $105,000 incremental revenue from this massive project. If you divide that into $25 million town budget, it's 0.42%. Now what that means for a taxpayer at a median single-family household will pay $18.62 less if we do this project and you rebated the entire amount. $18.62. There are 63 abutting properties. On average, they have a value conservatively of about $400,000 apiece. If you assume that they lose 5% of their value, they're going to lose $1.25 million collectively. 10% of their value, they're going to lose over $2.5 million. So for $100,000 of revenue, the town is going to impose this impairment of value on these people. But my point really is this.
This is your final point. We're at 7:50, please. Eric.
I mean, who's waiting? Who's waiting?
To the board.
Who is waiting?
Eric.
So my
go.
point is this. It's not going to balance the cherry hill budget. Councilor Capello is not going to keep anybody in their home who is struggling to lower their taxes by $18.62. That's my point.
Just one second. I will get you the accurate figures for what this project will generate from permitting fees, the intangible taxes. Your figures are incorrect.
Permitting fees are a one-time
I
cost.
understand that.
Right?
I understand.
I have the document
From the
from the
tax
tax assessor that had an anticipated revenue for the Scumfield project and the Gordon property, which also, I asked if we could also see building permit fees. You know, I was just kind of curious what this thing generated. So I just want to submit this to Lisa as a document, April 2nd, 2019. So if anybody wants to get a copy of this, can you get it from Lisa?
Okay,
Can you
great.
pass it down to Lisa? No.
Thank you.
Guys are in a tough position. My name is Jeff Gill. I live at 12 Evans Lane in Oak Valley. My kids are 4th generation residents of Hopkinton, how they were, but they can't afford to live in Hopkinton. The taxes are escalating out of control. Every time a proposal comes to Hopkinton, there's a big contingency of people that always come out against it, and the people that are for it stay home. Everybody knows that. When the Big Rock proposal came to Hopkinton back in 2004, the zoning ordinance allowed it and the comprehensive plan supported it. There was black and white print in the comprehensive plan that said big box developments. It was allowed on the commercially zoned properties. The whole town came out against it because they didn't want it. The president of the town council at the time wrote a letter to the developer before they even submitted a building permit plan and said, we don't want you here. So guess what? They went away. They're not going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in engineering to come to a town that they know isn't welcome. But the comp plan supported it and the zoning supported it. The zoning may not support solar arrays in a traditional sense on residential properties, but the current plan indicates that it is allowed to be heard by the planning board for advisory opinion and to come before the council to address them specifically on a site-by-site basis. Now, you have the right to do a commercial special designation, just like you did for Wood River Health Services, just like you did for the Brayburn project that never came to fruition, just like you did for the electrical installation that National Grid did. You have the control to do that because it's special. It's not your traditional commercial zoning that anything that's allowed in the commercial is allowed. It's allowed special for one particular use. I understand the people that have to live next to it, their biggest concern is the aesthetics, they don't want to look at it. But if you let the developer mitigate that with screening and berms, and let the planning board really hash that out with them, these things can fit in these parts of our town. I think the other two that you denied were great sites, I really do. They were tucked away, not many people could see them. The developers are offering setbacks. You need to just consider them. And thank you for considering them. I talked to the tax collector today. She said over 50% of our land in the town is open space and protected property. Of the 41,000 acres that we have in town, over 20,000 is protected. We have room for something other than forests. Something that will help our tax base increase the revenue the town needs to pay the bills. If you requested the state to allow an increase in the tax rate over the cap, if the people in the town come and they shoot down that tax budget, where are you going to make the cuts? You're going to have to lay people off? We don't want that. We need to stop thinking outside the box. 80% of the budget is paid for by the residential taxpayers in town. We never allow anything other. So consider it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Walter Davis.
Speaking to the microphone.
Okay, I don't expect to get any applause, but I'm one of the large property owners. I moved here in 1950, I was 90 years old. I've been here 70 years. I grew up on 130 acres of land. I got married, I bought 26 acres. So I didn't have those things. I resent very much people come in and say, I don't want to cut trees. I don't believe they say you want to pay taxes. They want trees, and I'll cut them another day. I have no plans on doing it. But still, the plan about road two, you don't have own the land. I don't agree. Thank you very much. Here's some of the testimonies here tonight. One of them was about transformers. You can't go anywhere without driving on a transformer, say. There's another one saying kids would climb over a fence. Believe it or not, I was a kid once. My parents told me you do not go on private property without permission. That's the way I was raised. I would expect other parents should do the same. I'm not for or against it. I am for property rights. These people come, all these people here, build houses. There was much more work before the houses were built. They took someone out of work. I got a call to postcard out of Florence from a realtor wanted to buy my house. All my life. I didn't want to sell it. I'm one of the people that was keeping it because I bought it and I kept it, paying the taxes on it and maintaining it. People come around trying to tell me I can't do that, but I'm not going to do it.
That's right.
Joe Moreau, Depot Road. It will be less than 5 minutes. Promise. I just want to comment on one thing that the attorney mentioned about the planning board, where member of the planning board said that this was a good project and an excellent presentation. That is correct, that was said, but there's always a but. It continues. Planning board member mentioned that the rest of the comment was that it's residential property. If it was commercial property, it would be a different story. It's not, it's residential property. That's the rest of the sentence that the attorney, maybe he didn't hear that, but he left that out. Think about 276 feet from that first panel to your home. 276 feet. That's the closest I've heard in all these projects that I've been involved in. One comment about hurricanes. I would suggest that everyone in this room Google Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico and see the devastation that was caused by that hurricane. Panels strewn all over the place. Someone mentioned this. This is a classic example of spot zoning. There's no two ways about it. This is spot zoning. Mr. Pamico mentioned the comp plan. And it's funny, I've heard that same section of the comp plan mentioned several times. What I don't hear is land use goal 1, to protect the quality of life and rural character of Hopkinton. I don't hear land use goal 4, to preserve existing working farms, wildlife, and wildlife habitat. I don't hear, I heard it tonight, housing goal 1. Hopkinton will be characterized by safe, secure, and attractive residential neighborhoods. This project doesn't do any of that. It was just mentioned that landowners have rights. They do have rights. I have rights on my property. It's our RE. I want to put a convenience store there. Guess what? Can't do it. I want to put a bed and breakfast. Can't do it. If I wanted to cut the trees, I could do that. And he's correct. He could cut his trees. But I'd ask him to try to put a bed and breakfast on his property. He just can't do it. We're losing sight of the fact, folks, this is residential property that we're trying to change to commercial. And I haven't found the special use commercial recently. If you look at the agendas that have been posted, they used to say limited to special use commercial. For the last couple of agendas, that word special has been eliminated. It just says, and I believe it's for this project, it just says commercial property. Go to the land use charts, and go to the town hall, do some research, and look at exactly what can be put on commercial. There was an article in the Sun recently, and the gentleman here said that his property tax was going to go up by $500 and he cannot afford that. Well, I looked at his appraised property value, and I believe it was $262,000. So that $500 bill is really $212.24. If people don't do the research and just throw out these numbers and expect us to believe it, shame on you, because we're going to research it. It's residential property, and we're trying to change it to commercial. Thank you.
How you doing, Mary? Yeah. Okay. Last one before we get a break for our friend.
I'll be very short. My name is Eric, I've spoken before the board occasionally at some of these meetings. I'm one of those.
And speaking to the mic a little bit, so take it off to stand. I think it is.
Can you hear me now? It's better. My name is Ed Carapezza, and I'm one of those large landowners. And I've lived in the town for 50 years, owned property in this town. And I've watched the taxes go up. I watched many neighbors talking about getting out of the town because they can't afford the taxes. We keep most of our land in our farm forests, so our taxes are lower as a result of that. And my eyes were really actually opened quite a bit by the comments by the abutters and whatnot. And my sense is, I've been an engineer for 50 years. developing technology programs, sometimes working on solar programs. So my heart is very much in favor of renewable energy. And the town, I think, will benefit significantly, not only from a reduced tax base, but from the flexibility of having renewable energy available to the state. So somehow, and I wouldn't want to be in your seats by a long shot, because these are tough decisions. But somehow, there's a balance here. And even with this program, the way it is, with so many houses nearby, there ought to be a way to scale things in such a way that solar development is possible for development opportunities like this. Obviously, the preference for developing solar is to tuck them in areas where they're adjacent to commercial, they're along 95, they're not close to abutters with kids and worried about a lot of the issues that came up. Incidentally, most of the technical issues that have come up are absolutely not accurate. If we can get into it, all the sound from the transformers are going to be attenuated significantly at short distances, even with deforestation. And the oils in the transformers are very much all relatively safe. So anyway, my last point, because it's late, is please, as you're reviewing these kind of projects, brainstorm among yourselves and come up with some sort of a compromise solution that on one hand allows for these kinds of developments, and on the other hand protects some of the concerns of the abutters. I think it's doable. I think somebody suggested forming a committee among townspeople to look at these typical developments and coming up with a better template for where it makes sense to develop, what's the scale when you're close to a lot of families like this. How do you design it and protect their rights and still permit renewable energy to be developed? So, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, but I think you should consider doing that because it's important that we allow some of these developments and that we mitigate taxes. Anyway, that's all. Thanks.
We're going to take a 10-minute break for Meredith to sit down. Okay, folks, we're going to try to get this going again. During the break, there was some discussion, I believe, with the applicant and one of a series of butters, and Mr. Craven will update the group and the council on what transpired.
Sure. Frank, could you go through the map? The one where the grid is being shown? Alan, could you put the one up where the actual dance is being shown? Well, this one has it as well. All right. Yeah, so
during the break, I was asked whether or not we would be willing to reduce the panel count, specifically in an area that is closest of others to the Lisa Lake property.
Tom Brady here.
So I'm going to try to, so right about there down, approximately, this is impossible for me to do it on an engineering basis, but approximately right about there down, we would be very willing, without any hesitation, to reduce or just to eliminate those panels altogether. That would address some of the concerns of property owners right here. You can see it. And if I believe correctly, right there is Mr. Test's home right now, where he lives with it, vacated, of course. But from that area on We'll eliminate those panels.
Do you have any idea on the number of panels?
I'm sorry, I don't. I want to be as transparent as I can. But, I mean, we'll take them out on the view. I'd be very happy to have the council members or the others or so walk with me on the property, to take a look at it, and say, okay, from here down, we're taking a look.
Do you know which butters, I guess?
22 is the one in particular. 22 is
Would there be a berm utilized here?
I have a berm, I do have a berm already utilizing in this area, and up on the top.
The panels are removed, berm in here?
Yeah, we'll find a way just to turn it around. I mean, we could work together on this, but then I was asked whether or not we'd be open to do it, which is absolutely yes.
Okay. Yes, yeah, yes.
Okay, I wonder if Kevin and Alistair could give us a real opinion on this vested right issue, so we can hear from him tonight. Well, we talked about it at the last hearing, and he was willing to talk about it.
We're going to get him.
Yeah, just a little. I will.
Kevin, you want to
Doesn't really matter, because you guys don't decide that. I was just trying to alert people that that is an issue.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. This is in response to some legal arguments that have been written and distributed to the council and to others, including a copy to me by Attorney Donnelly, which talks in general about the effective date of the new PSES ordinance. His opinion is that ordinance, which was enacted in February or January this year.
January 22nd.
January 22nd should apply to this pending project. So, I was asked what my opinion was on this, and in summary, this is my opinion. I want to start out by emphasizing that the only or the true legal question that's before you as a council, as a legislative body, whether or not to change the zone in the plan to the future plan use map part of the comprehensive plan. The only legal standard which boils down for your consideration is whether or not the project as proposed, if the zone change is granted, would be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. I think everybody agrees that that's the legal standard for the zone change. So, this question was asked of me several times before relative to other projects, and I would point out to the council that after the new council took place, I sent a memo dated December 5th, 2018 to each of the council members, and it was like a compendium of opinions that I had either been asked or given previously. And opinion number 4, which was part of the compendium of that memo, I labeled it this. The topic was whether changes in the town's current ordinances related to solar projects can be given retroactive effect on a substantially completed project application on file with the town. And I wrote then, and I believe this today, my answer to this issue presented is no. There are general constitutional and legal provisions I could cite here concerning the general prohibition against ex post facto laws. Rather than go into all of that, I can simply cite to you Rhode Island General Laws, section 45-24-44C, which states verbatim as follows. Any application considered by a city or town under the protection of this section shall be reviewed according to the regulations applicable in the zoning ordinance in force at the time the application was submitted. These applications that are before you tonight were submitted before the enactment and deemed to be substantially completed before January of 2019. Therefore, this statute mandates that the then existing, then being at the time the applications were filed, that's the conditions, zoning conditions that apply to this, not what was enacted in late January of 2019. So, Mr. Donnelly's expressed a different opinion than me, but I can tell you that is my opinion, and I feel very strongly about it. I think it's literally answered in this statute, and it's also supported by constitutional and clearly defined prohibitions against passing ex post facto laws. It's equivalent of changing the rules after the game's already over. So I'm trying to give you an unequivocal answer. My answer is no. We have to, the council has to consider this under the old ESDS ordinance. And I just want to close by saying I'm not an advocate for this project or against this project. My job is strictly to give my legal opinion to the council when we're called upon to do so, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm not advocating for the project or against the project. I'm giving you my honest opinion about whether or not the new ESDS ordinance applies, and I'm stating quite unequivocally that it does not. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, Mr. Donnelly.
Did I hear a real slob and sit here when I...
Oh, you can.
And I apologize for looking like this, but
No,
I
that's
can't take it off the hard cast. I can't get the pants on.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, first, I just wanted to, for the record in this, everyone has this memo that I sent with the attachments, etc., regarding that issue. I just want to put one of them in the record for this evening, that's all. Now, I also have prepared a memorandum for you folks, and I'm going to give you all copies from my friend Bobby Craven also. And I'm just hitting some points in terms of some of the points have been points that I've reflected on in other cases. But obviously, Mr. Craven wasn't here for one, and these people that I represent weren't here either, so they don't know. But one, just to touch on what my friend Kevin just said. As a lawyer, you learn that words have particular meanings. And we're not talking about an ex post facto law, something that's been changed, something like acquired rights, etc. We are talking about the words of the statute. Now, in that memo that just was handed out to you, I address a little bit about the beginnings of zoning and how it came about, etc. And it started when cities were becoming too crowded in the early 19th century. That's where it started. Now, from that point in time, the United States Supreme Court and the courts of the Supreme Court of Rhode Island have indicated that zoning, land planning, etc., they're an exercise of the police power, and the state has the ability to exercise police power to control things for the public health, safety, welfare, etc. Now, in doing that, the exercising that police power, the legislature has enacted statutes, and they provide to the cities and towns the power to regulate land use. And a lot of people say, I've got landowners' rights. No, you've got the rights that the statutes say you have. In the old days, back in common law, you could do anything with your property as long as you weren't harmful or hurting somebody else. But since the advent of zoning, all these various rules, regulations, that's what controls. Now, in 1988, the Rhode Island General Assembly enacted the comprehensive plan, which required everyone to have a comprehensive plan, each city and town, and it was going to be basically a roadmap to where are you going to go, how are you going to guide future development. Then in 1991, the legislature again enacted the Zoning Enabling Act, and that required that to bring some type of uniformity to zoning, because it used to be every city and town had a different way of dealing with things. They said, these are the things that must be here. This is how you must have your ordinances. And I was a town solicitor at the time, and I remember working on ours in Jamestown because it was required that you had to have it in effect by 12/31/1994. And there was a mad scramble in many towns, and that's why you see them all adopted in December of 1994 as a first set of ordinances that were reflecting that new statute. And they come in what the zoning is. And also, then the next year, I think it was in 1992, that the legislature enacted land planning, which gives the authorities to and requirements that every city and town have a planning board, commission, whatever they want to call it. And they told the requirements of how you're going to have what does the development plan review consist of? What is a major development plan? What are the rights of people? What do you have to notice when you're trying to do these things? So the bottom line is all of the statutes provided the towns with the ability to enact their own zoning ordinances, their own planning and subdivision regulations, but they had to be consistent with the city grant of authority from the state. Now, in that regard, the first one was the comprehensive plan, and I vigorously disagree with my friend Ed Pimentel, who says, oh, this is the way you do it. You just take a case-by-case basis, because and it's in the little memo, in the legislative intent, which is specifically set forth, it says this is so that we can have a framework that people can be planning for the future and not engaging in what they call reactive land development decisions, okay? So you want to have this scheme up here, and you folks do have that scheme up here. In another case, I ran through the whole procession of events that started back in 2015 and culminated 3 years later in the adoption last year in February of 2018 of your comprehensive plan. And there's a lot of stuff that went into that, including one of the requirements there was to say, you've got to identify in your comp plan what properties you have identified and you will, as to being in need of zoning change to reflect the reality. Some of them were, they've been used for a certain purpose, commercial or otherwise, for many, many years. And so they made all these recommendations. And when you look at that comp plan you adopted last year, you see that there are a lot of divisions. There's the land use division, the economics division, and natural resources. And one of them is for public services and facilities. And that's that goal of that policy, PSF number 18 that Ed mentioned. It's talking about public facilities. You won't find that in the land use. In the land use section of the comprehensive plan, it is rife with what do people what do they think the land use should be in the town. Not how to address an economic problem, not what you should be doing with the public services and utilities, etc. In that case, the overwhelming number of citations was to the rural character of the town. And it was the most important thing by a long shot that people expressed that they wanted to be able to have a rural atmosphere. Now, in that regard, you see a couple of words using renewable energy. And anybody can cherry pick, because that's I don't know, what is it, 350 pages of a document. And you can always pick out something. But when you look at that 18 that Ed talked about, that 18 didn't say, oh, let's go against the law and let's engage in reactive land use decisions. No, even in the Act of the Public, it said, consider expanding the current zoning regulations to allow photovoltaic installations in residential districts. And even there it said, what's your timeline? Did you give that? I think it was 5 years. Who's going to do it? Who's going to be the planning board? And you're talking about zoning regulations, okay? Zoning regulations would be to say, as an example, after studying, after we went through that 3 years, if we went through a process like that, you would say, well, we think it's a good idea that we should allow photovoltaic development in the RFRE. That's a zoning regulation. This is spot zoning. When you're saying, oh, we don't want it all over town, we just want it in this particular neighborhood. Because, why? Because somebody has, it's a reactive land use decision rather than something that was planned out, which is the antithesis of the comprehensive plan statute, which says it's expressed. You want to avoid that kind of stuff. And it's also, you say, well, I heard a discussion and people say, well, we got to figure out some way to deal with this. Yeah, but if you did that way, and if you made a decision to say, whatever, right now you've made the determination through the enactment of the current zoning ordinance that it's okay to have that kind of development in commercial. Okay, so anybody in commercial can walk in here, they don't have to walk here, they go to planning. That's who makes the land use decision here. They have to go to, under the old ordinance, they have to go to development plan review. That's the people that would give permission. The new ordinance, they have to go to major land development. Okay? But they're not coming to the council. Why are these folks coming to the council? Because they can't make an application. And this is a long, drawn-out way of getting back to Kevin's comments. Because the state has taken over the whole issue of what you have to do to control the use of land in the state of Rhode Island. And it's supported by the U.S. Supreme Court decision that says it's a proper exercise of that power. And so you say, okay, how are we going to do that? It's not by saying, oh well, those 68 abutters, we're gonna approve this for this neighborhood, and we're going to just, you guys will just have to live with it. No, the way you do it, if you wanted to do what the comprehensive plan suggested, you'd say, in a certain zone, these certain things are allowed. And it's applied across the zone. You don't pick on 68 people, and those are they're only abutters. That is people within 200 feet. There's a lot of people that are 500 feet away that are being affected by that. And you look at it, knowing that those three statutes gave the power to regulate, you look at, see, where does this, quote, vesting come from? It comes from those statutes. It comes from the planning statute, which says if you have master plan approval on a project, you're entitled to what that was, you're entitled to proceed on what the rules were when you received that approval. In other words, you can't go through the whole process, get your approval, somebody changes the rules, and you're out. And who is that for? That's for the planning board. Because the planning board makes decisions on development plan review. They make decisions on major plan development, etc. So under the planning statute, the issue of vesting comes from, did you make a completed application submitted for approval, that's the second part of it, to the appropriate board or the appropriate reviewing board within the town. So if you said, well, on the issue of a plan, if you say it's one of the other commercial property's going to do that. What these folks are going to do, they say, well, did you put your plan in to the planning board? They don't put it to the council. Did you put it there? Did they even complete? In that case, the planner has the certificate of completion, etc. And then if you've got that as the planning, okay, you're protected. Now the zoning ordinance in Rhode Island General Laws 45, 24, 44 enacted a similar provision, and it provided for vested rights, and it used the same language, that whole, substantially complete application that was submitted for approval to the appropriate review board. Now, if you look at zoning, you'd say, okay, as an example, somebody in the commercial district or the manufacturing district submits if they had to say it was dimensional values, and they said, well, we're going to go to the zoning board, and we're going to submit our application, and as long as it's complete, you can't go and change the rules while it's already been applied for. And who did you apply to? You applied for some kind of permission from the zoning board. If you went I'm Joe Blow. I live out in an R80 zone, and I want to build a single-family home. Who do I go to? I go to the building official. The building official's authority comes out of the Zoning Enabling Act, and that's who I go to get my permission. And the question is, again, in those cases, it's been interpreted, 50 cases I put in there, by Superior Courts, and further interpreting it, circumstances that maybe didn't get to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's in the same place, says, if you've done all those things, then you're protected. Now, a person could have, if they were in the commercial zoning district, they could have put an application in to the appropriate people, whether it be the planning board or the development plan review, because that was on the old statute, one that was enacted in 2016. They could have put it in there, or they could have asked for permission, and they could have completed. They could have said, to the planning board, can I have my certificate of completeness? But here, unlike those folks that reside within property or own property that's located in the commercial or manufacturing, these folks here can't put an application in for approval. They can't submit any application for approval to the boards that must approve. You guys don't approve anything. This is a legislative determination. You do have, if you look at the town charter, you will see that there are outlined the powers of the town council. And what you do is you obviously approve or deny, say if it's a victualling license or a peddler's license or a bar license, say. Okay, you're going to be the board that goes to it. That's the person that it's submitted to. But you don't, and you're not acting as approving authority here. You are being asked to perform a legislative function, that is, should we change our rules, the regulations that govern land. That's what you're being asked for. And you know what? If you grant it, you know what these folks can do now? If you did grant it, they could do the same thing that anybody that owns the commercial or manufacturing property could do right now, or could have done last week, or could have done a year ago. They could apply. They could apply. The permitting authority is not you folks. The permitting authority is the planning board under the old ordinance or the new ordinance. They can't do it, and they didn't do it. You know why? Because they got to show that it's consistent with and it's allowed use in the zone that it's located in. So they're not there yet. All you're going to do is set them up so that they could. And so if you approved it, then they could go ahead and file an application. And that's not today. That's at least in the future from this moment. And on January 22 of 2019, the town council, in its wisdom, adopted a zoning ordinance. And at the time that that was adopted, this land, as it is now, was residential RFR80. So so were there rights damaged somehow? Of course not. You can't, they're hoping at some point after January 22 of 2019 to get permission to be allowed to put in an application. They haven't done it yet. It's not ex post facto, and if you look at, and I gave you cites of this report, but there were some of the cases, it says the Superior Court in particular were really zeroing in on who was something submitted to, what was submitted to them, and did that authority, that review board, have the authority to approve that which was submitted. You are at the very first step. This has no relation to the vesting statute, either under the zoning ordinance or under the planning. So what you are hooked with is that you can change the zoning. You can improve that, but it's subject to the ordinance that was enacted in 2019 in January. You can't change that. And interestingly, it's the authority to which an application is submitted that makes the determination as to whether or not someone has vested rights. So if I go and put in an application into the building official just for that simple single-family home that's allowed by right, I put in the complete application, that person's going to say, okay, it's subject to X, Y, and Z. That's what it is today. Same thing here when you put it into the planning board, because it doesn't really matter whether or not it was the old ordinance, the 2016 July 18 ordinance, or the January 22 of 2019 ordinance. In either case, it required development plan review. So before January 22, after January 22, you have to file for development plan review. And they couldn't. They did. They were not able to, according to the law. So I think that there's a misconception here that the council is sitting there as if they're the permanent authority. The permanent authority, by law, comes from those three statutes. And it's either the building official, the planning board, or the zoning board. And they will make the determination. I was given that big long hoopla there that I wrote up and citing all the cases and which gave the examples, etc., with an eye toward avoiding some of this stuff. Because if people knew that, hey guys, you haven't submitted anything, so you have no vested rights. You don't have any vested rights until you've submitted the complete application to the appropriate authority for approval. And so you might think twice, because on these three properties, it's not two properties, there's three properties. There's one that's owned by Gordon Excavating, one's owned by Mr. Gordon, and the other is owned by this Hopkinton Land 1. So those three properties, and there, I think it's 14 acres, 70 point something acres, and 98 acres. According to the ordinance that is now in effect, if they go try to ask for approval or permission to do what they're suggesting, is they are limited to the maximum of 3% coverage. So they can have, whether 14 or 18 acres, whichever that small one is that goes out to Arcadia, that they can get, not even an acre, I believe. And the other ones, you might be able to total them all together to about 4 acres. And that's why I was trying to bring that up to you, because you folks are volunteers and haven't been involved with town council and sitting there like Kevin does, sitting night after night. You guys have a lot of real work to do when you're being flooded disappointed by all this stuff that, hey, just so you know, guys, you haven't submitted an application for approval with the appropriate authority. And so therefore, you kind of waste your time just because we didn't do this, and so it's 3%, and it doesn't seem to be as attractive then to people. But that's what I was trying to convey to you folks. But my kids never listen to me either, you know, so. But also, I represent, just to get this off my plate here, is I represent there's a total of, I think it's 26 or 27 people. There are 11 abutters, direct abutters, and another 15 that are across the street or something, within a few hundred feet. So I just have an entry of here to say, for the record, that's my entry is in there. Now, I looked at all of the abutters, and I went through, my assistant was, but she went through, and we pulled every record for every abutter. And there were two different abutters lists because the lot 8 and 13 were kind of grouped together because they had the same names, kind of. And then the lot 14, and you can see, and what I did was I went through the listings and pulled all the property records, and as you can see, on those two, I put a summary together, and there is you can see who owns it, etc., what's the present status, what's the zoning. It's all everywhere. It's either R1, well, some down in the Saline area, or RFR8. And interestingly, there's on those abutters lists, I think there's only two properties that are rated, or 3 properties, excuse me. These are just records, I want to put those in there. They're all otherwise used presently as residences. Also, I made copies of these just the summary for each of you folks too. And for Bob Craven.
Hey Jim, just a quick question. I know you see some electronic.
This is nothing.
About the ones mailed to our house. That is
no. That's that one issue of and just for summary, to show you that what's the consistency of the area. It's all residential. It's all, and people should be able to rely on that because you have to go through a lot of hoops to change things. And you don't just go according to at least the statutes and the legislature and the courts. You don't just take these things on one at a time. You have a framework from which you work. And if you did that all across if you did it all across town, you said any place in town, you can have in an RFRE, you could now have, you could allow photovoltaic energy systems to go in. Well, then it's spread across the town. You're not taking out one area. And that's what the answer to spot zoning. I disagree heartily with my friend Ed, who said in his report that, oh no, it's not spot zoning because the other lot next to it is going to ask for the same thing. Come on. There are 3 lots in this one project, and you can't say that this is something, that's okay because the guy next door, well, he's involved with it. And when you look at the distance from the real properties that are actually the properties that are zoning, that are residential, commercial or manufacturing, you're at the opposite end of the town, essentially. And nothing close to this area would be deemed to be commercial, etc. The Supreme Court has already decided, anyway, they ruled that the production of energy, electricity from energy, is not, it's not commercial use, it's a manufacturing use. So, be that as it may, and that's clear. I also was taken when I was reading Ed Pimentel's report, and I heard him again tonight, saying, oh, many towns, and it's all over the place, and he was talking about the vast majority of towns, etc. And I thought, geez, what's that all about? You know, it seems like this. Everybody has solar ordinance that says you can do thus and so, and he's talking about the different ways to handle it and everything. So, being my nudgy self, I looked at the various zoning ordinances that in the state, because there's one site that I always use that it has all of them listed. You can pop into it and get every city and town in one site. And I went through them, and I put together a report, and I was quoting from Ed about his, the vast thing, and so everybody does this and everybody doesn't do this, etc. Well, there's not many towns that have actually dealt with this. Not many towns have made rules. It's just, I was able to get, I didn't bother with the cities, because Ed said they're too densely developed. But there, other than the cities, there are 8 cities, so that makes 31 towns. Some of them were dead spots because probably the town didn't pay their bill to court base or whatever. But there were 24 of them, and that's in the report, that were listed. And I went through them, and out of those 24, there were 12 that had no provisions whatsoever in their zoning ordinance about the solar installation. There were 12 that did have some type of rule, some addressing of those issues about what you can do. There were only 7, however, that allowed such type of activity and development in a residentially zoned area. And in each one of those 7, it says that you're going to be by special use permit and either a development plan review before the planning commission or the major land development, which is the big thing. We're going to do a big subdivision, etc. So you've got 7 towns out of the 31 that say that, oh yeah, you can do that, but you have to go through a lot of hoops. And you know guess who the decision makers are for those hoops? It's the zoning board, it's the planning board. You're not talking about going to the town council because that's not within your area of power, your authority, etc. I did provide, I don't know, I might have misplaced it, but I did there's one that's kind of long report, everything. And then there's a little Cliff Notes version, which shows just very simply what things, what towns have provisions, etc. So I just really disagree with Ed when he's saying, oh, the vast majority, I wouldn't call it vast when you're saying 7 people allow it with a lot of strings attached out of 31. I would say everybody does it. As he said tonight, almost everybody, all communities do it. No, they don't. And what they do is, you have rules and regulations in your zoning ordinance. You don't have the reactive zoning that everybody comes in. What if people start to come up to you and say, I live in this neighborhood, I want to put my barber shop there, but I like to come here. And then the next guy said, well, I'm a great cook, and I want to have a restaurant there. No, you don't react to that. Nor do you react, you just saw it a few minutes ago. Mr. F said, somebody talked there, we'll do that. No, that's not fair. That's not how the statutes are set up. You don't just say, I'll react to this one, I'll react to that one. That is the essence of reaction. If you can give up my case, I'll do anything. No, you have a plan. It's encompassed in the comprehensive plan, which then you try to do, you try to make your zoning ordinance consistent with that. You did identify that. And if you read Ed's report, you would think that it's the other way around. But yeah, you won't be consistent with the comprehensive plan. But the will is like really kind of muffled. Because right now, this is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's not consistent with the neighborhood. There is no one in the world who would believe that this is going to be in accord with the uses that are surrounded for a very large place. So what you're doing here is you're reacting, and that's not what zoning is supposed to be. Now, I did put something together with the surrounding area. Here is all this, the commercial special. I don't know whether you folks will look at commercial special, which doesn't exist, or straight commercial. But I repeated from a long ago hearing about where it appears commercial special in the plan. Now, also, just as a side note, it might come back to bite somebody, but there is, when you're going to enact a zoning ordinance, there are statutory requirements when you're going to do that. And among them is you have to send notice to the abutters. It's reflected in your own ordinance, and that is something that's mandatory. It's not like, oh, I'd like to do that. No, you have to do that. And the thing is, I looked at those, I went trying to put that thing together about who owns what property and what the property's uses are and everything. There are errors. So people, they must have made this zoning, whoever made up the abutters listing for these hearings, made it a little too early, because well before this request for rezoning was made, there were sales there, and there were people that are not on the abutters listing, but who owned the property at the time that this was done. So I'm just telling you, I don't know these people, but they can just avoid everything you've done because you never gave notice. Well, I don't know if it's you, but it's I don't know who does your listed your notice here, whether it's the town or the butter, the proponent. But I also, this is just a little thing of here's the listing out of the comp plan for the land uses in the town. How many acres, what percentage, et cetera, et cetera. And there, you're going to be like doubling with this one ill-considered decision. You could be doubling that which already exists in commercial. How do you explain that? And then that whole thing about earlier on, you had those decisions where you were making and determining that these things would automatically revert. I've already addressed that. It's illegal. You can't possibly automatically revert. So what you're doing here is if you were deciding to make it commercial, it's commercial. And it's going to be that way until somebody decides differently. A different town council will accept it. I also was kind of taken aback, a couple of things in Ed's report, just saying, well, you know, residential can really be a problem, you know? Residential development, that could really be a problem. As if, what are all these rules and regulations, why did they come about? They come about to protect individuals' biggest investment in their lives. People that have their homes, the ordinary person, it's the biggest investment ever, and you want to have some kind of expectation, a reasonably based expectation, based upon the laws as they exist, that, okay, I can look at a place and heck, there's no commercial for 1 million miles away, it's all densely residential. You don't just plop down in there and change that, because you're damaging people, and as other people have alluded to tonight.
Hey, Jim, we're past the 10 p.m.
I know, I'm almost going to go.
No, I just, if you need more time, we can just continue. You know, it's already
well, if
10:13 and I'm 13 minutes behind my...
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I have all the time.
I will take you up on it because I'm going to be going in another 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah, all right. We'll have to continue. So just hold that thought, please, and we'll continue. May I have a motion to continue? Bob made the motion, Scott seconded. Let's do the 5:13, if everyone's okay with that. May 13th. So motion was made and seconded for May 13th to continue the hearing. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Good night.